Well, we can get these kids started and talk a little bit, and then we'll get into the meat of it until they get here. Any questions from last week as far as the size ups, kind of 360 follow-up type stuff? The PDF that was sent out, was that helpful to kind of go through for practice? Okay, so anybody have any questions going through that? Like, did that something didn't make sense or weren't sure about something? So try to find a good little mix of things just to kind of get the practice and repetitions of it. Now, practicing small, single story, single family residence, you can do that everywhere. Keep doing that. Learning on how to, size up the fire location extent problem, that type of it, and then coming up with orders. You have to get a little bit more creative with that type of stuff. But for the most part, the building and the size is definitely doable as far as practicing when you're driving around, and just keep doing that. So everybody, we're good. We're just wasting a little bit of time, so that's all good. You guys have a good excuse to get all you get. We blame it on Weber. So there are some printouts. Again, some requests that we had were just, it was nice to have the PowerPoint just so you can take notes as you're going. So we have that for tonight, so feel free to grab that and use that. Another thing that we kind of printed out, and I was working with our training division, they wanted to come up with a little bit of a helpful guide to help with people that are maybe learning how to do size ups, 360s, things like that. So again, you kind of have not necessarily a cheat sheet, but just a reference to kind of go through as you're quizzing yourself, testing, doing whatever it is that you're trying to do to practice for this. And again, it just kind of helps you get a cadence as you go through this. Where do you start? How do you flow through it? And again, it just kind of starts with the building description, the problem, your initial actions, strategy, assume and name command. And it just kind of helps you to have that framework to keep practicing through in that order. Because if you start jumping around orders, it throws your cadence off. So sometimes it's just getting a good comfort with, all right, how do I work my way through a size up and how it can sound? How do I work my way through a 360 and how that can sound? All right, so that's really what that sheet is there for. And it does have just like a little component at the very end, just what a transfer of command would sound like. Because again, don't cover the whole lot, don't do it a whole lot. But again, just as a reminder, what would somebody be looking for if they're asking for a transfer of command? So that's really just kind of a study sheet, just to kind of help people out that maybe don't do it a whole heck of a lot. So any questions on that? But again, it's printed off. So if you didn't grab it, feel free to grab it. It's yours to take, use to help you practice with. All right. So. All right. So the big thing that we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about the tactics, your crew assignment, and really the CAM reports. So last week was a big focus on how do we set up that initial size up? How do we go through that 360 progress? How do we determine what our priority is, what our tactical objectives are? Now we're going to kind of start working through some of that other background stuff. Maybe some people have been deployed, and how are you going to continue to reevaluate that situation, continue to define what you need to keep happening on the scene to keep things progressing in the right way. There we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about the fireground tactics, our crew assignments, and then the CAN reports. And again, we're talking about CAN reports plus P. So with that PAR as part of it. So on most scenes, again, we've kind of talked about some of this stuff, but it's good for keeping our head a little bit. What are our tactical priorities when we get on scene with fire? Put it out. That's always a big tactical priority. Life safety. So I always put life safety above putting it out. Firefighters like to put stuff out. Generally, putting it out contributes to life safety. But if there's an immediate life safety that needs to be dealt with, that needs to come first, right? As company officers, what are we responsible for when you get on that first scene? The first arriving one?
Command your crew.
Command, crew, and maybe the next 2 units, so maybe a total of 3 units. Again, set it up, move it in the right direction, right? Progress it, identify what the main priorities, the tactical objectives are to complete, start addressing them, and then hopefully it can be handed off to a next level up, and then they can continue that process as you go to work and wherever you're going to get reassigned to. Talk about it a little bit. How do our resources limit our tactical capabilities? Yeah, am I allowed to go in or not? If you have a crew of 3 on the truck, is that going to limit your tactical capabilities? Absolutely. Now, let's say you have a crew of 6 on a truck. Is that going to improve your tactical capabilities? So we live in a world where we have to kind of take that extra variable. Just because a truck gets on scene doesn't mean that we have to do a certain task. Doesn't mean that we're always going to be able to complete the typical task. we might be able to complete multiple tasks, right? Your resource is always going to be dependent on what you're able to complete for your tactical capabilities. So really more your tactical capabilities are dependent on your resource limitations. And then we should always be thinking, are we getting ahead of what I'm seeing, or am I just reacting to what I'm seeing? So what would I mean by that?
Is fire growing or?
So always reevaluating, is the fire getting better or not? I also like to think about it this way. If I see that that fire is in this room and contents, I should always be thinking, oh, I'm going to attack this. I need to get a search, rescue, fire control in that area, right? Think about the next step. What also needs to happen?
Check for extension.
Checking for extension. Again, if I'm always just focused on the one problem I have in front of me, you have the potential for that to start get ahead of you. Your job is to get ahead of the fire, right? Think about the next step. Water source. Again, great point. All these things are going to help you get ahead of the problem that you're seeing right in front of you. It's not just the one problem. How do I set this scene up for future success? To check all these things off. Now, that doesn't mean I get on scene and I'm thinking, oh, there's a good fire right over there. I better start working on utilities right away, right? You know, we don't need to go that far in depth. But I should be thinking, if I'm going to start doing salvage and overhaul and checking for extension, probably a good thing would be to check utilities and make sure that they're secured before I start pulling ceiling and coming across wires and everything else, right? So always making sure that your tactical objectives are lining up with building that scene further and further ahead and getting ahead of that safety factor for your crew. Again, we talked about that IC. You first arrive on scene, you're the company officer. You're talking about developing that strategy. How am I going to be successful on this scene? We're going to utilize those tactics to achieve those scene objectives. And then the tasks are what the crews are going to do to get those tactics and strategy complete. All right. Basically, I get on scene. My job is to create, what's this great plan that I have? How are we going to start to tackle this fire? I have to break that into my tactical objectives. How are we going to start accomplishing that? Search, rescue, fire control. How am I going to build on that? After that's done, we need to make sure primaries, secondaries are complete. We've checked for extension. Utilities have been checked. So again, you're starting to build that checklist in your head. What are those tactical objectives? How do they all fit in my strategy? And how do I assign those tasks to crews and in what order to make this a successful scene? Okay. Again, we talked about it. Anything else that we can think of that we would have for tactics? These are just kind of the general list of things that you might be assigned. Ventilation, that's a tactic, right? Utilities, tactic. So there's endless tactics that you can really kind of come across. And those really kind of boil back down to your tactical objectives. What am I trying to complete? What we should notice here, these should help us complete what our radio transactions sound like, right? It should be based around a search and rescue. My tactic is search and rescue. I should be assigning Centennial Engine 11, I need you to make entry Alpha side first floor for search and rescue. So when they go in Alpha side first floor, they know their assignment is search and rescue. That's my tactical objective. I know to get back to you and say that that has been completed. I can check that off my list and move on to that next priority, right? So what we should always be kind of working through. Not that we break down every fire into an easy checklist, but at the end of the day, for that initial assessment, we should be almost looking at it as kind of as a checklist as we're going through it. And we have to determine which check is the priority. So again, some of the other ones, and I put these ones a little bit later. Why are they on the next slide? Why was the first one on first list on the first slide? Yeah, a little bit more main priorities, right? Exactly.
It can't happen until you do.
Exactly. So my tactics should always build off of each other, right? So on that first one, search, rescue, fire control, forcible entry. Is there a time that forcible entry might come above search and rescue? Yeah. Absolutely. I might have to complete forcible entry before search and rescue. So just because it sits somewhere on a checklist doesn't necessarily mean that that's its priority. I needed to complete something else first. You need to complete what you need to complete to make this a successful scene. All right. And what steps you need to make, that's why you're the incident command. You have to make those decisions. And we should always be working towards, how do I get to the point where investigations have been started, ventilation's being completed, salvage and overhaul is done, and we're working on that customer stabilization. Right? If we're always working back towards that bottom line, how do I get the customer taken care of? Right? How do we make sure that they're, at the end of the day, they had a horrible incident happen. If I was successful as I went through my list, I should always coming back to, how do I at least close this out for them and give them back whatever we can, right? Sometimes it's just a simple conversation. You know, have you started to talk to insurance company? Have you done this? Have you done that? Is there anything we can go in there and walk you through or talk to you about or help you with? Or we need to call Red Cross? Do you need to get in touch with somebody? You know, whatever that is, that's our job at the very end of the day, get them stabilized. So, crew deployment. I promise I'm not going to talk. It starts off heavy with me talking. I'll stop at some point. So, as I come up with my tactics, I'm going to be deploying. So, a crew that's deployed, that's going to be assigned a tactic to go interior and complete. Now, it doesn't always mean it's interior. You can be assigned for fire control and be on the exterior, right? But let's just say for argument's sake, it's deployed, it's an interior position. I'm deploying, I'm going to back them up. I'm going to have somebody on deck. So it's going to be layered in the sense that somebody interior has a backup crew that is there to protect them, has a crew on deck that is ready to replace them, and then also potentially has somebody out on the street staged, ready to fill back into that pipeline. So we need to really think about the resources that we have available. Am I able to complete all those tactics that I'm trying to do with the resources that I have available? Keeping a pipeline of people on the exterior ready to go in and replace, reinforce, rescue interior crews if needed. And at what point do I realize I ran out and I'm not able to complete tactical objectives anymore? What do we need to do then? Upgrade, right? And hopefully we realize it before we get to that point, right? If we get to that point, we realize I do not have anybody to fill an on deck or staging. I've overused the resources that I have in place. I need to think strategically, and again, this is why incident command needs to stay strategic in what they're doing. It's not just deploying and dealing with the tactics, it's dealing with the resources that I have available, and am I going to be able to maintain the tactics that I have chosen to use on this scene, all right? Each assignment that you choose should be building off of the previous, right? We kind of talked about that a little bit. First crew is going to be assigned search, rescue, fire control. That next crew is going to be backup. That's going to establish that they're a protected crew, they're inside. That backup crew is probably going to be able to help complete searches behind them. That's going to work towards completing a primary on that level. Having a crew on deck, that's going to be able to replace those crews once those assignments have been established and completed or they're out of air. I've got another crew that's ready to go in and continue that. That on-deck crew is likely going to be assigned to checking for extension, maybe finishing that primary. Maybe there's another fire location. But having these crews in the right spots allows me to adapt to that and build off of that tactical objective and priority that we have. Okay. So we always want to use that. Again, we talk about task location objective when we're giving those assignments. Do something over there, and this is how you know when you're done. All right, so how it sounds, engine one from command. Engine one acknowledges. So this is another time that we would clear that radio. Okay, we talk about clearing the radio. We do it every time. But when it's pertinent, we like to make sure that people are hearing a clear order, especially when it's to do something tactical. I need to ensure that you've understood that, and I can start checking tactical objectives off. Because if you hear the wrong order and you go to the wrong location, start doing the wrong job, I no longer have accountability, and my tactical worksheet is no longer going to be happening the way that I want it to. So engine one from command, engine one acknowledges. Go ahead for engine one. Engine pull a line from engine one, make entry to the first floor alpha side for fire control. Is that pretty clear? Task location objective. So I know I'm going to pull a line, I'm going to go to the first floor, and I am going there for fire control. Have you ever heard somebody say, engine one, I need you to pull a line, make entry alpha side? Yeah, I hear it on the radio all the time. Do most of us know what that order is? Yeah, because we hear it all the time and we do it all the time. Is it a good tactical crew assignment? I can make the assumption my job is to go for fire control, right? Because generally that's what we do. Firefighters were there to go put the fire out. You had me pull a line, that's what I'm there for. But if you're not saying search, rescue, and fire control, if you're not saying to back up engine two that's already inside, to do a certain task that completes that objective, it leaves ambiguity. You know the word. Ambiguity. Yeah, we'll go with that. And that can lead to a misunderstanding, right? If we leave that room, I no longer know when my task is complete. Engine one, can you give me a can report? I've got a line and I'm on the first floor. That's really all I was told to do, right? I can tell you I'm making progress on a primary. I didn't need you to make progress on a primary. I need you to find that fire location. You know, again, I'm getting to very basic, minute detail on this, but you can see on some situations where that could be a bad situation, right? So you want to be very clear without being wordy, is what I'm trying to get to. Engine 1 is always going to pair it back. Engine 1 pulling a line, first floor, alpha side, fire control. Why was, as Engine 1, do I say that back to command? Exactly. So we do not want to have misinterpretations. Have you ever heard on a radio where something sounds one way and it was really not what you heard? It happens all the time. So that's why it's very important that command gave you a clear order. You came back to them and said, I'm completing that clear order. Everyone's on the same page. We're moving forward. We're not getting wordy with it, right? It's pretty much short and sweet. Engine 1 pared it down even from what command had said a little bit, but it was still to the point where Engine 1 was concise enough to say, I understood what you're saying and I'm moving forward. Engine 1 didn't just say copy and then decide they were going to go to second floor for fire control. Now in the testing, and again, this is not a prep test, or yeah, this is not prep for the test, but it's still helpful for you guys to hear this because you guys are going to be going through a test again, right? You will not hear back a copy of the order other than Engine 1 copies your orders, right? And that's to reduce the amount of time that we're talking to allow you to have more time to get your orders out, all right? We're recording, we're making sure that we get your orders right. We're talking real world scenario on this. So I don't want you guys to get confused and think that we're screwing with you in the testing. When it comes time to like, why aren't they parroting it back? Or why aren't they saying exactly what I said? We're just trying to reduce the amount of time that we're talking to allow you to have more time to take the test, all right? And also, if I get it wrong, saying it back to you, that starts to screw up your test, all right? So we kind of want to let you have the test and do it and run it the way that you had it without interference from us. We all know there's potential where we say the wrong thing back or hear the wrong thing and move forward accordingly. It's recorded for that reason that we can always go back and your correct answer will be there. It's not going to take any more time for us to go through that. So we're always trying to complete those tactical objectives. Assignments are going to be clear with where they're doing, what they're going. It's a crucial part. I can't talk to you. I apologize. It's a crucial part of our accountability system for us to know that my assignment was received. You know where you're going, right? I can't keep par of crews that are assigned on the interior if I don't know that they heard where I said that they were getting sent to, right? So later I come back and we never had that clear communication. Engine 1, did you copy me? Yeah, Engine 1 copies. I come back later, Engine 1, do you have par? Yeah, I have par. I don't know for 100% that they are in the location that I sent them to, do I? No. Unless you said Engine 1 copies, we're going first floor fire control. Copy that. Engine 1, do you have par? Yes, we have par. Now I know that they have par in the location that I signed them to. Now I get a mayday, Engine 1 does not have par. Okay, I need all my crews that are on RIT. I need you to go on first floor alpha side. They're not on first floor alpha side because we never had that communication completed as to where they were actually located. All right, so all of it plays into a factor working back towards our accountability system. Everything's done for a reason. So in CAN reports, I've given my assignment to my crew. Since we've practiced it, it's going to be beautiful, perfect, task location objective. It's all the great things. They've gotten that, they've gone inside. Why do we ask for CAN reports? As an incident commander, why am I asking for a CAN report? Do I not trust that you're able to do the job that you were assigned?
Paint a picture of the
Exactly.
inside.
Exactly. And I can tell you, and I guarantee you probably also heard radio traffic somewhere where you just kept hearing CAN report after CAN report after, where somebody's just asking for it over and over and over again. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's generally an IC that doesn't either trust what they're seeing or trust what their orders are. Okay. So you have to try to find that right level of asking for it at the right time without over asking for it. And if you're uncertain and unsure of the CAN reports that you're getting back based on the conditions that you see, what are you responsible to do as the incident commander? Make a decision for them sometimes, right? As firefighters, sometimes we get a little stubborn. I'm fighting the fire. I just need another line. Yep, we got heavy heat. We're making good progress. And I see flames shooting out of all the windows. Yep, we got it though. All right, I'm incident command. I'm responsible for this. I'm pulling you up. All right, I can't just keep asking for CAN report after CAN report, hoping that you get the message that I don't really trust what you're doing, right? Good CAN report is going to include conditions, actions, needs. We're always going to end it with include PAR. If I give you conditions, actions, needs, you're going to know where I am, what I'm doing, what do I need, and how many people I have PAR with. Now, Engine 1, you got to see with a crew of 4, right? driver's still out with the truck. Officer, you're probably outside doing incident command. You've got other crews on scene. Engine one made an interior attack. You reach out to engine one. Engine one, do you have par? Yes. How many people do they have par with? 2, right? So you don't say 4, because you have no idea if the driver and the incident commander are still out there. Engine one is now just that crew of 2 that went interior. Okay. So always make sure you include how many people you have with you, because you might have an idea that you went in with 3 people, and command might have the idea that you went in with 4 people. There's a discrepancy, and we can always solve that. But if you're thinking you have par, and our par board shows 4 people, and you keep saying that you have par with 3, it's now an incident command to kind of figure out what's going on, right?
Are they counting themselves? You know?
Exactly, and there's a lot of things that can happen, but that's why we put names on there. Right. So if I look and I see, oh, Firefighter Johnson, he's back at the pump panel, we're good. You do have a par of 3. All right. And again, that's why the system is built around what it is. It allows us that ability to then look at it and then figure out how it needs to be remedied, or if there actually is an emergency or just a misunderstanding. Okay. When we talk about conditions, incident command, do you have any idea what the interior looks like? We have a good idea, right? We did a good size up, a good 360. I have a good feeling about what I'm sending you in there, but I need confirmation. I need confirmation that what I saw on the outside is going to match with what you're seeing on the inside. So what are you coming across? You have a unique piece of the puzzle that the IC does not have. So a good CAN report can help that incident commander continue to figure out this puzzle and continue to make things successful. So it's also going to help them track the effectiveness and the accuracy of their IC picture. It needs to include where you're located, what conditions that you have, and any of the potential fuel loads. All right, so you're talking about my condition would be on alpha side first floor, got heavy smoke, no heat. That painted a decent picture for everyone. So I know where you're located. I know you got a lot of smoke, so your visibility is probably low, but I feel good saying you telling me that you don't have a lot of heat. All right. Now, if I thought that the fire was in that location that you were at, and you're telling me that you got no heat, does that start to build another picture in my head on maybe the fire's not in that location? Now that might be remedied by some of the actions that they come back with later. But again, all of those little pieces start to help build that picture for you as well. Fuel loads. Is it important if you go inside as a crew, we see a house, but we go inside and maybe it's a hoarder house? Yeah. Does that change a little bit of that picture that the incident command would want to have? How do you say it? An hoarder house. Use common, plain terminology. We don't need to be PC about it. Yeah, I'm in a hoarder house. Let's paint that picture, because this is about safety. It's not about protecting feelings. We need to make sure that we're aware of the fuel load or the hazards that crew might be coming across. So we talk about actions. That crew also needs, on that CAN report, needs to give good actions back. What is your progress of the assignment? If you were assigned fire control, can you tell me the progress of that? Making good progress on fire control, unable to find the fire, whatever that might be. And then also, if it's been completed, so when would I say all clear? If I was assigned a search and rescue, right? Primary. So primary would be all clear. When am I going to tell you that the fire's under control? If I've been assigned fire control. So again, maybe you've completed that, and then you've said, fire is under control. We are now checking for extension. All right. You've actually told them we've moved on to the next level, the next tactical objective that, again, you're keeping track of as I see outside, or if you're unable to locate the fire. 2 different conditions that you would maybe come across. I tell you, those don't happen all that far apart from each other. This one, you're going to have heavy smoke bank down and high heat. This one is flashover, or rollover, I should say. Maybe not technically flashover. There wasn't enough stuff in that room to technically flash over. But those are conditions that command is going to need to know, because as you progress down there, the outside picture, it looks the same to them, whichever one you're coming across or seeing. Okay. Why do we ask, what do you need? Why do we need that as part of the CAN report? What do I need to do to support your efforts? I gave you a tactical objective to complete. Are you going to be able to complete it with what you were assigned with, right? We just want to have confirmation that what you've been given will be able to complete that assignment. Maybe you need reinforcement. I need another crew in here. Maybe I need replacement. We're getting low on air. We're not going to be able to complete that task. Maybe it's a specialized tool or equipment. I'm not able to breach through a certain thing. I need a forcible entry tool or whatever that might be. Maybe I need support work. I need ventilation to be able to complete what I'm doing, right? So maybe I have a different tactical objective that I need done to be able to do better what I've been assigned. Or maybe I've identified another area, right? Engine 1, make entry, fire control first floor. But on my way in, I noticed that there was potentially fire on the upper level as well. Man, I'm going to need a second crew to make entry, go for fire control on the second floor, right? So I'm not going to abandon my first tactical objective, especially if there is fire on the first floor, because I don't want to start, I'm going to leave the first floor fire, I'm going to go up to the second floor fire. Get that one first. But maybe there's another area that needs to be addressed. More often than not, what do you hear? No needs, right? Now as crews, I think sometimes we overuse that a little bit, right? We do. I've got no needs. You gave me a primary, I can get the primary done. If there's enough resources on scene, or if there's enough of a tactical priority, especially when you're talking about life safety concerns on scene, you might need some of these support works or extra crews to complete those tactical objectives, all right? A second crew to help assist with the search might be a beneficial thing, especially if you've got heavy smoke, no heat, right? That's going to be a low visibility environment. It's not super hazardous, but at the same time, we all know that that can change over, right? If I don't get this figured out or found the fire location, we're not going to have enough time to complete that search by myself, right? So maybe I need that second crew to assist with that. Don't be hesitant to reach out and ask for those needs, or at least state that they are a need. Just because you're incident command and somebody says, I need another crew to complete search on the first floor, do you have unlimited resources? Are you going to be able to accomplish every need that they have? You might not. Copy that. I understand your request for a second crew. I do not have one available this time, right? That might be the answer. It's unfortunate, but now you've got another priority, another resource to, or another problem to solve in your strategy for that scene. How do I get enough resources on scene to start getting ahead of this again? All right. And at the end, again, we talk about it. We want to include PAR at all of our CAN reports. We've even tried to talk to some of our crews. So if I'm assigned fire control as engine 1, I make entry and I knock down the fire. Do I wait to tell command that I knocked the fire down? No. No. If you are, shame on you, right? You were given a tactical objective. If you've completed that tactical objective, it is on you to now reach out and say, hey, man, this has been done. We are going to move on to this, or what is your next order, right? So if that's been completed, we would reach out, have a radio communication, and I've been trying to tell our crews, just because it wasn't a CAN, doesn't mean that you still can't include that you have PAR. Command from engine 1, go ahead. Be advised, we do have the fire under control outside first floor. We do have PAR still. Copy that. So you're getting a CAN report without being requested to give a CAN report, right? So it's good for you to think of as crews as well, when you're interior, basing your communication and your radio traffic around CAN report style will still be beneficial, okay? And that should include those PARs as well. Because if I wait every 15 minutes to check with my crews that are inside, is that going to be early enough to determine that a problem can be resolved? No. Now, at the same time, does that mean we're going to catch everything right away, you know, just because my CAN report prompted you to look around? No. The CAN report should be happening more often than 15 minutes. 15 minutes, that's long enough for a crew to get inside, do all their work, run out of air, come back outside, right? So if I waited that whole length of time to do my CAN report or for a PAR check on them, yes, it's good that we're doing PAR checks, but it's maybe not as effective as just doing a continuous one to ensure that those crews are engaged and confirming with you continually that they do have PAR.
So if we knock the fire down, let's per se, and this isn't a CAN report or anything, we just come back to you to command to let you know that we knocked the fire down, conditions are improving, and then just say we have PAR even when we do a check-in like
Yeah.
that? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have to wait for the can.
You don't have to wait for the CAN report. I think it's just, we don't do a good enough job even with our CAN report saying par. Again, we talk about, good discipline on our radio traffic, and technically our IC, after getting a CAN and it's missing a component, they should be asking, and do you have par? Just to confirm that all the components that they were asking for are established in there. So there's a lot of things that we have to do better and we have to continue to work on, but that's why we talk about it, and that's why we train on it, and that's why we try to implement these things and talk about how do we get better about it. Just start doing it. We got to do it, and if we finish our radio transmissions with par, it's great. Now, if command says engine one, I need you to move from the Charlie side to the Alpha side, you come back and say, command, engine one's moved from Charlie to Alpha, we have par. Probably not. If we're just talking about a crew to stage from one location to the next, where we're talking about very interior, you're working, or you've been assigned a tactical objective, it's good to finish it up with a par, because command is going to want to continually ensure that that crew that they're communicating with has that par. Is it always going to be command that you're giving these reports to? Who's somebody else that you can be giving it to? Division, right? The division, Alpha, Charlie, Delta, Bravo. It could be some scenes I've heard, an accountability officer or whatever else that it could be. Somebody else might be asking for these things. It's important for incident command, if I assign, and this is getting maybe a little in depth, but we're not testing you guys on this, but I think it's still important to cover. Engine one's been assigned inside, engine two's been assigned inside, and now, all right, I'm starting to know that I'm gonna have to preload this, and there's gonna be a lot of work on that front side. Maybe I got that right resource. Hey, you'd be great to run Alpha. It's important to let them know, hey, you're gonna run Alpha, you've got those crews inside. I think it's also important to let those crews inside know that they're now reporting to Alpha. Mm-hmm. So I always like to, generally what happened is a face-to-face, hey, you go ahead and take Alpha, I've got engine one interior doing fire control on first floor, I've got engine two backing them up. All right, they understand, go up there. Engine one from command, be advised, so-and-so will now be the Alpha division, you'll be reporting to them. Engine two, be advised, so-and-so is Alpha division, you'll be reporting to them. Again, now I know I don't need to reach back up to command. I have a division assigned to me. Okay. So that was a quick way to power through a PowerPoint, right? I promise this was not going to be a PowerPoint class, all right? As much as there is PowerPoints up there, it's not a PowerPoint class.
Can I just ask clarification?
Yep.
So divisions, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, wherever you're all set up.
Yep.
Resources needed. Do you always go through command, or can you ask for me?
That's a great point. So, as far as resources needed,
I've got crew and I've got non-deck. I already know that they've got 5 minutes of work and they're going to need. I need a new deck crew or.
Sure. So can you just go ahead and deploy
Can I ask
that next
for personnel or rehab, or do I have to go through command?
So
it's been run both ways.
Yeah, it's been run both ways, and that's the difficult thing to answer, because I don't think there's a clear definition. I like to let divisions decide what they need. And I like to have command determine if there's enough resources on scene to accommodate that. Again, command is going to be overall monitoring where crews are moving to and how that's all going to look. And at the same time, I also expect my division to be able to request and get resources as they need. That makes sense. Yeah. That's a non-answer. It's the best answer you can do.
It's really department by department.
It really is. It really is.
So as command, then how are you tracking the resources?
So that's a great point. Par boards, who do they go to? You get on scene, you're that first arriving truck. Where's that first par board go? With that first command post, right? Wherever that first command post is. So let's say engine 11 gets on scene, that company officer assumes command, they're taking command, all subsequent par boards go to that incident commander, right? So anybody else that's assigned up on that scene. Now we sign a division. Division, you now have engine 11 and engine 2. Where do those par boards go? They go to that division. Because they're the ones that are going to be getting those CAN reports and having that communication with those interior ones. And they're going to be the ones that are tracking the personnel on that par board specifically. Now it's still up to command to still know that I've got engine 1, engine 2 inside. It's going to be up to that division to be able to track that the par board itself is matching the crews that they have on the inside. That kind of make clarity on that. So I always like to think of it that way. As a crew, my par board always goes to who I was assigned to. You're always assigned to incident command until you've been assigned to a division. And once you're at that division boss has it. When I leave that division, because they say it's time to go to rehab, I take it from them, I go to rehab, and now I give it to rehab. Which is rehab's not really a division. We kind of run this somewhat of a quasi remove from the scene division, in the sense that you've been assigned there, do the rehab, and once rehab says you're good to go, they can move you back into that as requested by divisions. So should always stay with the crew and be given off to that person that they're assigned to, or that division or same command. Okay. So good question. All right, make sure I pick the right one. All right, we're back on scene of this. Who wants to give me a size up? I should make sure that I'm recording this as well. Really sharing the right screen. There we go. All right, there we go. Now I know I'm not sharing the right screen. So who wants to give me a size up? We already did it last week. Go for it.
Dispatch from Tower 3.
Go ahead.
Tower 3 is arriving to a small single-family residence, 2-story. We have an active fire on the garage, attached garage. Tower 3 will be laying a line for fire attack. Tower 3 will have Johnson Street Command, 360 to call.
Sound pretty good? Just for consideration, active fire. It's not a bad description of what we have. We like to use working fire. And again, it's just about getting, the more we add terminology in, the bigger things expand. Keep it simple. It's a working fire, right? I don't know if it's defensive or offensive or how much has been consumed, but it's at least that I can tell you right now that attached, which like you said, it's an attached garage, has a working fire in it. To the extent of it, I'm not sure. It could be completely involved. It's a lot of smoke. We've kind of talked about that last week, but at least from an initial size up standpoint, got a good working fire in that attached garage. Small 2-story single family residence, lay line, off side. Tower 3 is going to be assuming command, completing a 360. Pretty solid. All right, now you're going to do your 360. Walking around. Go ahead, give me your 360 report.
Command from Tower 3.
Go ahead.
360 complete. We do just have fire on the Alpha from the garage. We will be doing an offensive attack from in the house and defensive from the outside. That would be my 360.
Okay. So you're clarifying this as you're going to be an exterior fire attack on the garage.
Yep.
You're defensive over here. You're interior. You're offensive over here. Okay. All right.
Like we had an extension into the home. So
all right. So first crew, Tower 3. You got a limited crew, crew of 4. Drivers pumping. Your command. You got a crew of 2. Where are they going with that line?
Went to the Alpha side to start fire attack
On the
garage.
Garage.
Yeah.
Because again, you said it were defensive and offensive.
Right.
If Tower 3 here's Alpha side
Right.
for a fire attack,
So
you're leaving it up to them to determine where.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So
yep. So again, make it clear. I need you to attack garage fire from the exterior. You know, Tower 3, go ahead. So Tower 3 is going to do that. All right. Engine 2 gets on scene. They got crew of 4.
I'm gonna have.
What's your assignment for them?
I'm gonna have engine 2.
Tower 3's driver was able to secure water supply.
Okay.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
Guys, secured a water supply. I'm gonna have engine 2 do a search on the residence and have the other 2 be a backup.
Okay. So you're splitting engine 2. 2 are going to go in. 2 are going to back them up.
Not back them up, but
On deck.
On deck.
Okay. All right. I wouldn't worry so much about splitting crews this early on, but I see where you're going with it again.
So you would have, instead of sending 2 in there to search, you'd send the full 4 guys in there to just knock it out.
I would have them pull a line as well.
Yeah.
I'd pull a line, especially Tower 3's already got a water supply. Pull
Right.
second line off of Tower 3,
Right.
make entry outside first floor, and the residents complete a primary first floor, check for extension. Again, pretty good working fire. I don't believe I have extension with that much smoke, that much condition over there. There's a good potential that you might come across some extension, right? We haven't been given any all clears by anybody standing in the driveway. Nobody's like that. So I need to get a crew inside of there. I agree. First tactic, let's start knocking this down. I haven't been given any red flags that somebody's standing out there saying, please help me, right? Let's start making this situation better. Next crew in, let's get in here and start knocking that out. So there's all sorts of statistics out there about crew sizes and what their capabilities are. Crew of 4 is able to complete it in an X amount of time. Crew of 3, 60% of that. Crew of 2, 20% of that. So, I mean, it drops off dramatically. So just getting that crew of 4, go do that. They can go do it. Now, even that being said, you've got Tower 3 on scene. So the first driver from Tower 3 is going to be assisting with that. Engine 2, let's say that they had to do a water supply or whatever else. They're the first engine on scene. There's potential that that driver stays with that truck. So it might only be a crew of 3 that's actually doing that operation and going in. That other driver might be assisting with that scene. So engine 2 is making entry. All right.
There's a back door.
But that, you're doing Charlie side, or are you going to do the service door on the
Oh,
front?
we can do the Charlie side through the window, you know.
So, and again, make that clear, right? Because just a fire attack on the garage, I'm going to interpret that as it's time for me to have some fun. I'm going to break some shit, and we're going to start spraying that from the front yard, right?
We can have
So-
3 run around the back and knock down a lot of the fires in that window.
Absolutely. Is there anything wrong with saying, Tower 3, go ahead and pull a line up to this service door, pop the service door, and spray it? Probably pretty quick order as well. But like you saw, that back window's already out. Go ahead and start spraying from there. You're going to have to make that decision on how you want that attacked, but make it clear. Because again, if we leave it up to interpretation, we're always going to take the path of least resistance and just start doing what we see right in front of us. Okay.
So the reason you would send a crew of 3 or 4 in interior without a backup is because there's no visible active fire in the residence part?
I'm deeming this as a fairly safe situation right here. I've got a crew assigned right here. They're fighting the fire, but they're still up exterior. If I needed to, I could have them bounce over and assist that interior crew, right? So personally, this is what I would do. I would be attacking this from the front just because, again, a lay a line right up the driveway, even though we've got a lot of obstacles, is always going to be easier and faster than trying to lay around to the back. Lay up to the front, pop the door, spray from that door, have my second crew working right here. By that time that second crew is actually deployed that line and made entry, by then I've probably got that third crew on scene that's able to then go on deck or back them up. All right. And I might even be able to utilize them if they're giving me good reports that I've got a nice all clear. I can maybe even have them bump up to that next floor now, check that upper level, and then get a crew assigned up on deck, or maybe even start establishing utilities. So again, how do I utilize those crews? Always thinking forward to that next step, knowing that I've got more resources coming. You know, if I had that much smoke coming out of this front door, and my first line was going to go to that front door, my next line is going to be backing up that first line going in there, right? So always making sure that I'm taking good care of that crew that's going to be going into that hazard. Over here, feel pretty safe. In that garage, it's separation, right? You're generally going to have a pretty good firewall, not so worried about a crew going in right there. So you have to kind of make those judgment calls. So engine 2 makes entry. You go ahead and, as incident command, you ask them for a can report.
Engine 2 from command.
Go ahead.
Can I get a cam report?
Yeah, and I'll let you go ahead and do it too. Okay. What is your can report?
Low smoke, no smoke in the house, the home. Still working on a search and no needs at this time. We do have power.
There you go. So again, reconfirming engine 2 was sent in with a line to complete a search first floor. Engine 2 is on that first floor. I've got low, moderate, light, whatever it is. It's not much. It's hazy, light, very light smoke.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's
I didn't
kind of-
even
it's
realize
hard to
it was playing a little video.
Even if you said no smoke at this point, wouldn't think it's
Okay.
no smoke or light smoke at this point. Still working on a primary. and we have par, all right? Beautiful. Sitting outside is incident command. Does that match what's going on in your head? I have a sigh of relief knowing pretty light smoke conditions, right? Because what is my first thought? Good working fire in that garage. I really don't want to have any extension into the house, right? Because as this extends over here, now I have to add tactical objectives to my list. Any heat? Yeah. So on this one, I would say there's probably no heat. Again, that's kind of hard to guess from on here. But if they're saying no heat, no smoke, you know, all of that, is this a hoarder's house or is this a normal? Yeah. So again, it's not like you need to say I'm in a normal house. It's only if it's outside of the norm that we would start to pick up on some of those other components. So as I continue, getting closer to the garage, this is a little mud room. Okay. Going back to the living room. I can go upstairs to the bedroom. You're back downstairs to the first floor. Now that you've completed a search on the interior, what would you do?
Command from engine 2.
Go ahead.
We have an all clear on our primary search. Going to continue looking for extension inside the house.
And I park.
And I park.
Okay. So by doing that, now command sitting on the outside, and you don't know this because again, this is silly sim world. You completed on the first floor, let's say, right? Everything on the first floor was done. So command primary complete first floor. So the assignment that you gave me is done. I still have par, and you told them I'm going to be checking for extension. I, as command, now have the opportunity to say, hold on, go upstairs, give me a primary at the upper level before we start working about extension, right? And so what you said and did is completely normal because, again, I was assigned right here. All right, now I'm just going to start working. Yep, I got that, but me as incident command, I want it all clear throughout that whole residence, not just the first floor, right? And where else do I need to check after the first floor? Second floor, and if there was one, basement. I think we talked about this last time. Don't really believe it's in the basement on this one. It's probably slab on grade. So all of those components are going to start working towards that good CAN report, and it's going to help you decide how things are working over there. Okay. Let's see. Nope. What is your initial size up from the street? Did we do this last week? I didn't think so. Okay. So you get on scene. We have a great view of this. Okay. What's your size up? Don't always get the best views, do we? Go ahead.
Centennial Engine 11 arriving to a 2-story multifamily small building. Heavy smoke showing from the opposite side. Engine 11 will be on the line, and it's going to be a defensive attack 360 to follow, and Engine 11 has whatever street command it is. Good one.
Sound pretty good? What's one thing that he said on there that kind of set the tone for how the rest of the incident's going to go?
Defensive.
So he did say defensive, which, you know, could lead people to believe we're only doing defensive, more of an exterior attack to begin with. We don't really know enough yet, but he said smoke is showing from the alpha side. Is it clear what side of this building alpha might be to everyone? Technically, this is the street right here, the fourplex. So you're going to start establishing what you are telling everybody else. This is what I'm calling alpha, right? So if you're going to say this is alpha, that's alpha. It's up to you. You get to determine that. So I think that was good. And it's also very good to clarify that. And that might even come in the 360 that comes, you know, you've got a working fire alpha Bravo unit, whatever that might be as we continue to go. So as we look around, so we peek on this side. That's what you see right there. And then we'll peek around to the other side. Whoop. Never mind. Peek around to the back side. This was. Yep. So yeah, I remember seeing a picture of you on scene of this one. Yeah. No, I just swore. Oh. Yeah. So that was kind of your 360 glimpse of it. Not you didn't get a great 360. This is kind of you just peeking around. It's heavy snow, and you're maybe not gonna get a great one. What's your 360 come back as?
Dispatch Centennial Engine 11.
Go ahead.
Centennial Engine 11, 360 complete, show a heavy working fire from a tech under garage, out the side, smoke showing from the upper level window. We pull in a line for offensive attack.
Sound good? We made it pretty clear. We described, we know it's a tuck under garage. We got a good working fire. We're going to be doing an offensive attack. We completed our 360. It's a multifamily home. Start to paint the picture for everyone. So, engine 11, where's that line going? Okay, and we're just going to hit this from the exterior, right? Our job is to start to knock this down. Okay. Luckily, your driver was able to establish a water supply. Engine 3 gets on scene. What is your assignment for engine 3? And again, this isn't going to progress or get any better, but we all know that as you start to put water on this, it's going to start to shrink down. What's that?
How many? On the
Four, yep.
So engine, which one was it?
Engine 3.
Engine 3, need you pull a line from engine 11 up to the opposite front door, make entry, and search and rescue. Upper floor.
All right, there you go. So I like that you finished because just a blank make entry, search, rescue. I'm going to pick my poison on which way I want to go. You told them which way to go. You know, and that's going to be beneficial because if they come back and say they've got a mayday, we know what level they're on, right? They make entry. If I figure out how to do all this. This is what they have when they open it up.
Front door?
Yep, this is the front door as you're looking in. They start making entry. They knock that fire back as they're going. They still got some of these conditions after they knock down that fire in the stairwell. You asked engine 3 for a cam report. What would their cam report sound like here?
We had heavy smoke, high heat, knocking down fire. They've used a second crew when we have fire.
Everybody agree? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Now, what these don't really picture all that well is that this was a porter house, all right? So, and again, you're not going to have that information from those few slides that you saw, but if you're coming across that much stuff, you're going to be able to start knowing that pretty rapidly. All right, so heavy smoke, heavy heat, making progress on the upper level, need a second crew. What does that tell you as the incident commander?
It's breached from the garage into the
Yep.
house.
So I've got, and not just breached a little bit. There's a good working fire inside of there, right? I've got that much smoke, that much heat. And if I'm standing on Alpha side as I assigned them, I probably saw that they fought a fire on their way in, right? Do we need to get them backed up? Absolutely, as soon as possible, right? So engine 3 made entry, that next crew's coming. What's their first assignment? Back them up, get a line in there and back them up. And as a backup crew, engine 3 is making progress on that upper level. Where am I going as that backup crew? So I make entry through the door. They're on that upper level. I'm probably going to come up to the top of the stairs and make verbal contact with them. Engine 3, we're here. All right, what do you guys got? We're working on a fire up over here. Copy that. We're going to stay at the top of the stairs. I'm going to search behind you, and we're going to complete a search out in this living room. Whatever that is, just so they're now aware, I've got a line anchored behind them to protect them, protect their egress, and we can complete a search behind them as they continue to advance forward. All right?
We have an all clear from anybody?
No all clears from anybody yet.
But I might pull engine 11 off and search the lower.
Exactly. So as they work through here, we get through all this, all the fire's been knocked down. The next place that we're going to go, down to the lower level, right? So now we come into the lower level, and this is where it starts to make a little bit more sense. That's looking into the garage. It's looking in the utility. It's looking in the basement. What's the report from down there?
There's a lot of shit inside.
Great.
Fire heat, warehouse, searching for fire.
Yep.
Yeah, need ventilation.
And need ventilation, right? So I've got a need right now because honestly, we're drastically reducing the amount of smoke on here so we can actually see and talk about this. But in reality, there's barely any visibility whatsoever in this. And you're basically feeling that you have mountains of stuff. So if you hear low visibility, high heat, porterhouse, what do you think as the incident commander? Not great, right? If I'm not getting ahead of this immediately, if I'm not able to put enough resources inside of this, we got to back up. We are not going to be able to attack this fire like we normally would, right? So you have to make that decision. If this is no longer normal, I cannot take the normal avenues that I have on this if we are not able to immediately get ahead of it. Okay. I can tell you another thing I'm going to think. You tell me it's a hoarder house and then you come back and tell me that you got a primary complete. I don't believe it. I'm not buying it. Now, that is a situation where maybe what you were able to search is complete and the likelihood of somebody being so far back or whatever, probably low. At the end of the day, do we know? No. It's very important to get secondary, very important to get ventilation, very important to ensure that we've got fire control. All right. So I'd say your top priority on this is fire control. So we cannot do anything else effectively until we have that fire control and ventilation established. So that's going to start to help you decide where your tactical objectives are going to lie. We really can't do an efficient or an effective search on here until we really get ahead of some of these other things, right?
Two things real quick. So if I'm the backup crew and I've made entry and we're at the top of the steps and I do a face-to-face and I tell you that I'm here, is there any value of saying we're a crew of 3?
Potentially, you know, I think it depends. You know, everything's situational. So, because it's not like you've been assigned to that crew, right? So that crew is now not in charge of you. You're just there to back them up in the sense that they kind of quasi are in charge of you, as that they've been given the primary tactic and you've been given the secondary, which is to support them and then complete anything behind them. But once you're in that position, you know, letting them know, hey, we're here, got a crew of 3, we're going to go ahead and do the search behind it. No, I need your line up here. We've got a heavy fire load. We cannot advance anymore unless we got another line up here. Copy that one. We'll bump our line up and we'll back you up. Whatever that might be, that's going to allow them to kind of determine how they want to approach it.
Okay. And I know this is a video, so it's hard, but what is the descriptions of, or how do you, for the smoke, you know, light, medium, heavy smoke? So if I'm on my knees and still can't see, that's like heavy, I would say. But if I'm standing up and can see and it's just smoky, is that light?
Oh, moderate.
Okay.
You know, if I'm able to walk, if I'm able to see, got moderate. If I have just a haze or light, it's light. You know, we kind of know where that light is. I have to crawl because I can't see, got heavy, right? No visibility. So sometimes smoke condition versus visibility might be a little bit different. I have moderate visibility, I have no visibility. That paints maybe a little bit more of a picture in your head as far as heavy smoke or moderate smoke, right? So, but always kind of having that mindset, what I'm describing should match something outside. So if you say heavy smoke or no visibility, to me that means you're crawling and you're not able to see anything without a tick, right? But if you're using a flashlight and you're able to see pretty much everything, that's not heavy smoke, right? That's a moderate, it's a normal smoke condition. So that's really something that you need to kind of consider, because what you're describing should then also match what you were expecting. Because if I'm saying light smoke, the expectation is, you know, a burnt out fan motor or you know, maybe a trash can that was on fire far away, or you know, maybe it was burnt food. You know, just that's going to start describing what you're expecting, right? But if I hear heavy, there's good involvement. And I think we kind of know when we're in those situations where there's good involvement, but we could also have no visibility and more of a cold smoke situation. Where'd you find that? Even a situation where you've got sprinkler activation, it's a sprinkler controlled fire, and you've got lots of smoke, no visibility, but there's no heat whatsoever. You've got just that hazy, steamy smoke that is just, you know, it's gray. It doesn't have the heat, but you're not going to have good visibility. And that's going to be based more on like a cold smoke. You're going to see in a warehouse fire, building fire, commercial fire that's got sprinkler activation that's kept the fire in check, but it's produced a ton of smoke that's not able to escape. Incident command, what am I thinking when I hear that? Poor visibility, not going to be able to advance well, not going to be able to get to the seat of the fire, or search very effectively without good ventilation being set up. It's also telling me that the fire is probably under control, but we need to ensure that we've got enough lines in there. I'm not going to shut down the sprinkler system until we get to the seat of the fire. So again, all those descriptions that you're telling me from the inside should start to build my story on what needs to happen from the outside. Okay.
What about heat?
As far as
Assuming I don't have a tick, and I'm in there, how am I describing? You know, I've been on a few, and I'm
Yeah.
usually amped up where that's the least thing I'm feeling or
Yeah.
even paying
So-
attention to.
and some of it comes with experience, right? Some of it comes with experience in the sense that you just kind of get a feeling for the environment that you're in, and you're able to kind of calm yourself past that and understand what am I in, right? And when you have the radio, you almost have to kind of give yourself a little bit of that. I'm being asked for this information. I've got to get beyond my amped up and give my clarity to this. So if I'm feeling heavy heat, you're starting to feel it on your ears. You're starting to feel it on your neck. You're starting to feel it on your shoulders. You know, you're feeling it on those compression points, right? What does that mean when you're feeling it? If you're feeling heat, what does that mean? It's hot. Your gear has absorbed as much temperature as it can absorb. You are now absorbing that heat. All right. So we know when we're in a high heat situation, right? High temps, high heat, whatever that is, it's not good. If I'm not able to convert that rapidly, I need to remove myself from that situation, right? Now, if I've got moderate heat, you know, that's one of those where I can tell, you know, I've got heat. It's warm in here, but it's not hot. You know, one of those situations where you can tell that we've been in some of those fires where you're walking around and maybe you're not crawling, maybe it's, you know, moderate smoke. You're like, man, there was a good fire in here. You know, you can tell that there was that warmth. And then no heat, it feels like you're just in this room in your gear, which are there days on a hot day where it can still feel pretty hot? Absolutely. But we almost have to have some of that recognition in our heads. If I'm crawling on the floor and going, holy hell, it's hot in here. That's high heat. All right. So you need to start thinking about that because that also needs to mean something to you. It shouldn't just mean something to command. If I'm giving that back to you, to me, it's telling myself, oh, I just told him no visibility, high heat, unable to locate the fire. If the bell is not going off in your head, that something needs to change in that equation. You know, it better be going off in command's head, but it really needs to be going off in your head as well. So it's also an assessment for you to understand what you're in. Okay? It's not just for command. Nope, that's not going to have interior. Let's see, there's another good one. No. I had it all written down too, and I left my sheet.
Third box alarm.
Yeah. Let's go. Let me grab a sheet before I just make you stare at all the different simulations I have. I had it written down. Let me be right back. So take a quick break.
You know, that's me. What did you think it was?
I thought it was one of my CPRO contacts.
Oh.
I was remember. Were you waiting to get it?
Yeah. And there were like a line of semis. I think it was maybe a good half hour at least.
I think it was 35, 40 minutes or something like that.
It happened yesterday. I was there too. And same thing. I pull in and there's a train actually stopped right at that blocking them.
Okay.
I was like, how can they just stop? And semis are backing up.
They do, so every now and then I get caught by it. And the longest one I've ever been caught by is in Ireland.
Really?
But so there's a back way to get in. If you can get there. So if you go down. But the problem is you have to get across that initial. Railroad,
Right by Sunstone, right?
those tracks, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to get across there, and then if you follow that street. You take a left. It goes back to the Battle Creek building.
Okay.
Over there, you know where that is?
Shop Road. I was on the second
Yep.
Shop Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you take that one, then you can go all the way back and then. And the location that I do is. Kind of next to the roundhouse. It's another maintenance building. For my ways quickly, I can get out across those tracks. And
Yeah, it was.
the back ways seems to like a mile.
Oh, really? But you're waiting an hour.
And then it's one road.
Was submitted today.
Kind of. Really car with like 2 car lines.
I had a machine at
Yeah, but probably done.
Island. I think they called it Island Yard House, maybe. So
Oh,
I didn't see any other buildings past there.
That's what I think it's got was a 25.
It was all 1,000 cap road. So I plugged that into Google and I showed up.
But again, we got it from,
I finally asked them.
Great.
They're like,
thank your application being reviewed, in 1 to 3 weeks with your back.
to go back out and down the road to the next chop road. And in there, he listed out 2 buildings and neither one of them were it, but the third one was the one I was looking for, so.
where was the thing?
I think I first pulled in by the roundhouse, so I was driving all around in there. And I think it was 868 is the building I was looking for.
Okay.
And the other ones were like 840. So that's.
Yeah, that was on,
There's
supposed to cover me, ain't it?
I can pull right out on the road.
gotta-
and hit it all out. So there's
we
railroad
tried
tracks
finally
on
got
either side.
But we've got,
Yeah, it was like.
famous day,
so it was like
Cowboy
Yeah.
Jackson.
That's where I was
that
at.
road. Goes back towards the start. There's like.
Finally got that.
Is that the one that you can get to on 10? There's like a little parking lot there and a bridge that goes like a walking bridge. that
Yes.
goes over there.
We'll get going again. So we'll just kind of practice, I think, a little bit more of the size up 360 and then how a CAN report would affect some of our next steps. Does that seem like a good use of our time for the rest of it? All right, perfect. I'm not saying it's going to go for the next hour, just saying we can continue with that for a little bit. So you arrive on scene to this. Not a good day? No, it's not there, right? You're like, why didn't the chief get here first? So, yeah. So you got on scene, how do we size that up? What does that sound like? Let's give it a shot. Walmart, yeah.
Garden Center? Garden
Well,
Center. Garden Center.
Center's on the other side.
Yeah.
It's like
That's the road.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the, okay.
It's pretty close as well.
So by saying that, what did we establish so far? We're at a Walmart. Pretty good idea on what a Walmart looks like, right? We got fire in the Alpha Delta corner. By doing that, I've established this is Alpha, that's Delta. All right. Again, confusing thing. This is addressed on the Ulysses side, which is behind it. So again, people would say, well, technically the address side is Ulysses. So that would your command. I've got fire in the Alpha Delta. We're Alpha, that's Delta. You know, and perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. Go with it. We're seeing that. What is your assessment from a scene like that when you see that? Sprinklers didn't work, or did they work? Is there fire on the inside of that building? It could just be a roof fire. Is there any sign from this building at all that there's a fire inside of this building? There isn't a single sign from the inside. Do I need to get people inside? Is the CAN report for them going to be important? Absolutely. So, if you're an engine, first driving engine, what are you going to do when you get there?
Like a second box.
Get more. I need more resources. So Immediately, more resources. Love it, because do I have enough resources coming for a commercial fire this size? No. Maybe for what this is, if it doesn't grow anymore, maybe, but you have a large commercial building. Is there potential that this is going to continue to grow? Absolutely. And let's get those resources started now, because there's too much potential for the tactical objectives that I'm gonna have to fill to get overwhelmed with what I have on an initial assignment.
Didn't come in before you need them.
Absolutely. So that's great. Get ahead of it. Exactly. Absolutely. And in this situation, you're more than likely going to need them, right? You're more than likely going to need them to get all your tactical objectives done. So as a first arriving engine, your IC, the engine's the only thing you got there. What are you going to start working on?
Water supply and get them. Location.
Great points. Because pretty easy to spot an apparatus on a house fire, right? It's usually right on the alpha side, stay out of the way for the ladder to have the primary position so they can access it. Where are you going to put your engine on this fire?
Is there a closer look?
I don't actually have one on this one, sorry.
Say on the Delta side.
So start thinking about what needs to happen next. So you need a water supply, right? And what do I need to supply?
An aerial.
An aerial. Because even a deck gun, am I going to really be able to get down onto this? No. You're going to be getting water up there. It might start slowing it down, not a bad thing. But it's not going to really effectively put it out until I get a line or a ladder up to that level to start working on that. If it's just an exterior fire, I still need to confirm that there's nothing on the interior as well, right? So I would consider placing my engine somewhere over on that side over there. Let's say there's a hydrant right on this corner. Again, corner of the building is a great spot for a ladder to sit. Get your ladder, what you picture as a good spot for a ladder. Position your apparatus in a spot that will allow your truck to get in there, access that spot, but you'll be able to supply them with water. Okay? But also keeps you close enough to that front door, because until you get that piece there, what do you need to do? Other than just supplying water, you could have your FAO start working on a deck run to try to rain some water down on top of it to slow it down. Your crew's going to need to at least assess what's on the inside. I'm not saying we get aggressive and just grab a line of the 2.5 and go in there and start doing business, but somebody needs to give me a report on what's going on, right? What report as command do you expect to hear from that engine when they get there and they peek inside and start looking?
It's nice and clear.
Yeah.
Right?
Not evacuated.
Yeah, it's not evacuated right now. You want to hear that there's nobody inside. You want to hear that there's no smoke, there's no heat. They're unable to locate any issues from the inside, right? That tells you that my fire is all up there. They get inside and they tell you that they've got a working fire in that Alpha Delta first floor. That change your mindset for this fire. Absolutely. Because now it goes back to, were the sprinklers effective? Were they not? Are they even on? Are they, and how much more potential does this have to grow now if it's inside? A lot. Quite a bit, if those sprinklers are not being effective. Quite a bit. So what I would assume first arriving is that I've got a working fire up there, maybe knowing this building, a lot of the cooking and everything else is over there. Maybe there's some duct work. Maybe there's a fire that went up a hood and you got to the top and caught on fire or something. That's my assessment. I don't know that until I get inside and get that confirmed. So if that crew comes back and says, I've got a good working fire Alpha Delta corner, I'm going to need multiple lines on the interior. What is your first move? It's your only truck on scene right now.
Pull them back.
Yeah,
Pull them out there. Right? If they're telling you we need multiple lines to start attacking this fire, it's not a safe environment for them to be in until you get the resources on scene to truly attack that fire. Right? So this is one of those, we size up a lot of houses and everything else, but it's good to have a mindset for commercial buildings as well. Do we have a lot of fires in commercial buildings? Is there potential? Absolutely. And we expect to find them more often than not sprinkler controlled. Does it always happen that way? It doesn't. It doesn't. Sprinklers can get overwhelmed. Sprinklers can be shut off. So when maybe there's something that it just had to be shut down, and that's happened. Unfortunately, that timing just works out, and then that can overwhelm and just absolutely take over a building of this size rapidly, because that building is full of what? stuff that wants to burn. Yeah, everything, as much plastic as you can fit in there, that's in there. That wants to burn now.
Did that happen to you guys at UConn?
The DEMCOM, yeah, which was basically, I mean, it's literally just
It was sprinklers, but they're shut down.
the sprinklers were shut down because they had a leak in the system. So it was Friday, they found a leak, they shut it down. They said they'll be out on Monday. Well, what happened? You get a fire, of course, in that one time. And it takes the entire building, because once it goes, that one was full of, building materials and things like that. But that's not that far off from the same material that's in here. I mean, it's not building materials inside of there, but think of all the plastics and everything else. I mean, you would rapidly have fire expansion in there if the sprinkler system's not able to contain it. Okay.
Is there a pump in this Walmart? Fire pump?
Yep. I believe it's actually, I get this one at Lowe's confused. That one's in the back. It's in the back. Lowe's has it up front. But we need to attack commercial buildings differently, right? So even if I got unseen, let's just say we had just some smoke coming out of that front door. Let's say, have we seen the YouTube video where the kids light the fireworks display on fire in the aisle, something like that, right? So we don't know what we were called to. We just know that there's smoke at a Walmart. How aggressive are you going to be with that first crew in a commercial building? Not as aggressive as we are in a residential, right? Because I'm not saying we divert back to our comfort level and we're more comfortable with residential and we're going to be able to be more effective, but there's much more capacity for us to get hurt in a situation like this than there is in a residential. Not that there isn't in a residential, but I think you know what I'm saying. We can mitigate those hazards much more easily in a residential. We can support those crews much more rapidly because they're not going as far in. They're not going to have as many hazards, trapping points, able to get lost nearly as much as they can in a building like this. Now, that being said, if Walmart has a display that's on fire, and it's contained by a sprinkler, are we able to have our crews start working on that? Absolutely. I'm not saying you have to wait till you have 5 trucks on scene to start establishing that, but if we get some of these commercial buildings, you have to have more of a mindset that first crew might not make entry until there is a backup line, especially if you as IC determine that there is a good working fire on that interior, right? Your mindset has to change because that crew needs to be protected, because think about how far in that they might have to go to access this. And how many more obstacles they're going to have to get around, and how much more difficulties that they're going to have getting an all clear primary. Just anything that they have to do is going to be expanded. So resources are going to be much heavier on a commercial. So that's why I like that you said, give me a second. I got a good working fire on a big commercial building. That should be a no-brainer for us. Just start a second if we suspect that there's a good working fire in a large commercial building.
In a commercial building though, like this, wouldn't you have more information from like staff or like a manager, hopefully?
Potentially, right? So hopefully, and again, time of day, and all the other things would start to factor in, because you'd have people coming out, right? Generally, if there's a fire in an occupied commercial building, people are going to be able to exit. They're going to be able to tell you that there's a fire over here, or yeah, we don't know what's going on. Everything's fine on the inside, or
There's nobody there.
That's
It's a market right there.
yeah, right.
That's an exterior, you got a drive-by.
Well, and that's just it. Let's say it's 2 a.m.
Because they could be going by at 65.
So many different variables. But you're right. Generally, on an occupied commercial building, people will be aware of this and be alerted and exit.
And they won't evacuate, they'll take video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, this, or there's another
Show us
place.
what's in there.
There's another place that you probably won't get people to evacuate, at least immediately. An apartment building. How many people leave after they've heard that fire alarm go off for the 15th time this month?
Because there's 3.
Yeah, they're like, it's cold outside. I'm not going to go outside. It's nothing. It's somebody burnt food again. Apartment 301, man. I wish they would just figure out a cook. So even though that they're able to get themselves out, doesn't mean that they always will, because they're gonna not necessarily be on board with whatever that might be. So that was your assessment. Do a quick 360. Not going to be quick. Yeah.
You'd be driving this.
Yeah, you'd be driving it, or have a chief drive it, or because if you got your first engine there, you don't want to spend all your time driving around that building. You kind of want to start establishing something, but somebody's gonna have to get assigned to drive that and kind of really figure out what you got going on. Do you guys see any other issue? Is that pretty much what we had, was that, right? So some things I like to consider when I'm doing a drive around on a large commercial building, or if I'm assigned to that 360, if I can identify somewhere that has roof access, riser, electrical room, you're going to see like those doors that are labeled So it's different than a residential. Residential, I'm looking, what's the basement type? Are there any hazards? Where the power lines, things like that. On a commercial, I'm looking for, where's the Knox box? Where's the FDC? Where's the roof access? Where's the riser room? You know, where are the components of this building that are going to help me be more tactically sound when I make decisions? If I have to send a crew up to the roof to go check and see what's going on, I'm going to want to know where that roof access is. Where's my closest point? And a lot of times you're going to have it printed right on the door, roof access right there. A lot of times you're going to need to get a Knox box key and start making access, because that, or we have to use our help if we don't have access. So
You guys have pre-plans for this?
I'd like to say that we do. We generally have some pre-plans on file, but I think that's gonna be one of the next things that we have to start tackling is more pre-planning, especially on our large buildings like this, because you pull up to that, just to have it on a map. Risers here, FTC's here, all that stuff right there. And sneak peek with some of the changes coming to Anoka County, that's gonna be something that's gonna be very easily done on some of the new systems that we have coming forward. So that would almost be tied into it. And I don't know all the information, but as long as they go with the company that they say they're going to, a lot of that would be tied into what they're basically their Active 911 app that would come with the program would have all your pre-planning information on it. And pretty much anybody at the department would be able to update it and say, yep, I was out there. This is where the roof access is. This is where the hydrants are. Because private hydrants on this, are they necessarily going to be in CAD? Probably not, because the CAD hydrants are generally going to be coming from your cities, which are your public hydrants, not necessarily the private hydrants that this building had to put in. So if I go out there, I'm going to be able to mark that I've got a hydrant here, and a hydrant here. And that's not going to be on CAD. It could be on your pre-plan. So you know, all right, well, best access is to set up these ladders, or we need this spot over here. So yes, we generally have a lot of pre-plans for our apartment buildings, and that's more for where the stairwells, where those electrical rooms located and boiler rooms and things like that, just because we're having some deals called. But I think that'll be our next move we get.
We're pretty fortunate. I mean, obviously our area is a lot smaller, but most, if not all, of our commercial and apartment buildings have all of that stuff in Active Alert.
Which is perfect.
Pull it up and see FTC, we can see Knox box, we can see.
Which is awesome, because then it takes away so much more effort that you have to put forward. I can get on scene and I know that somebody's already been out there. The beautiful thing about that too is that somebody's already been out there, somebody's already marked that, somebody's also probably already checked these things, in the sense that the Knox box isn't just here, keys also work. You know what I mean? And so there's also that other side to it that actually kind of helps build your confidence in what's going to happen on that side.
We started flagging order houses too. Even on medicals ago, they were like, okay, we're gonna mark this one.
Which absolutely. And I think that's important that you guys continue to do that. And I think we're gonna have to, as a county, be more proactive on that, because let's say you guys are on a call, somebody else gets called over in this new system, you flagged it there. Anybody that goes there and that has that app, I mean, they're going to be able to see that, oh, there's some notes here that this is good to know. So that is a good thing. So as I go this far down, I apologize, because some of these you have to click so far off just to actually get to the right one. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to kind of pause it so it doesn't play through, but you got scene wants to go ahead and give me a size up.
I'll go.
Go for it.
All right. 2800 SPM engine 2.
Go ahead.
Engine 2 is arriving on scene to a two-story, small two-story, single-family residence. I've got an active fire on the alpha side, second story. Engine 2 will be laying a line, alpha side, 360 Apollo. Engine 2's got Main Street Command.
How's it sound? Okay. Good, decent. Decent, yeah, not bad. Call it a 2-story, split level. Yep. That's, again, yeah, absolutely, especially in a picture. Is that something that can be cleaned up on a 360? Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong. Your job is to give your initial assessment. There's a lot going on, a lot for you to process. What do you see? How do you read it? Can always be cleaned up if it's something different. All right. You see this side? Charlie side. Delta side. Back on Alpha. What's your 360 follow-up sound like?
2800 SBM engine 2.
Go ahead. Your SPM command now.
Oh, SBM command.
Yep. No worries. That's just a reminder for us all. Yep.
Okay. 360 is complete.
Mhm.
We have a large deck on the Charlie side. Then what are we doing next? Is that what I'm going to tell them?
So on a 360, what do we need to have on there? Everyone help them out.
Any hazards?
Any hazards, any changes?
Secondary.
Is locate, yep. So this would be a great time because we didn't really, again, if we're going off of what we said originally, we called it a 2-story. We advised us the split level, lookout basement, Charlie side, right? Yep. So you did identify that there's a deck. I don't know that it's so important to say that there's a deck. It's good for you to know that there's a deck. Deck with stair access, right? Because you got egress, or for whatever reason, if you need to get a crew to make entrance on that side, you're able to pretty rapidly. But to me, the big things are, you know, dispatch from command, go ahead. Be advised, 360 is complete. I do have a lookout basement. Charlie side, this is split level residence. We do have a working confirmed fire alpha side, upper level. Be continuing with the offensive strategy. Anybody else see any other hazards? Not really. Things that I've identified myself that I might not have on there. Deck, I've got egress. It's a lookout, it's not a walkout, right? So I'm not having people walk in there, but at the same time, if I need to send people down there, feel a little bit safer. It's a pretty good size. It's a split level lookout. So it's a pretty good size window. So I think they're kind of hidden on this side over here, honestly. Yep. So, but again, great to be looking for them. Generally, you're going to find them, right? Not all the time, but generally you're going to be able to find them. I think you're right. Yep. So gas meter's right over there. No, so it's got to be buried and it's got to be somewhere. I would imagine that it's probably. Mm-hmm.
You do have a gas fireplace too.
Oh, look at that.
I don't know if it, oh, yeah, this, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Split level. So we got an upper level and a lower level. We believe we've got the fire upper level, Alpha Bravo corner, right? Where would you guys expect to find the stairs to access the upper level? Straight in, right? Straight in, probably half flight up, half flight down. You got a little mud room right there. What do you expect to find right here? What is that room? Probably living room or kitchen, right? One of the two. Fact of the matter is that they've got that tall of a window. I'm going to assume more living room, but at the end of the day, still could be, you know, a kitchen for whatever reason. And maybe this is the dining table that sits right there. But again, you can start to make assumptions. Likely, probably either another little living room area down below, potentially a bedroom, but probably another little living area right there. So from this side, you got a patio door right here. Yep. So when I see that little window right there, those little windows usually tell me that the sink's going to be sitting right there, right? Sometimes you can identify that those littler windows could be a bathroom, could be whatever else. But for this layout, I'd pretty much put my money on that. There's a sink right in there. That's probably a dining room with where the patio door actually sits right there. Little dining room table. So that's definitely a living room, probably up on that front side.
There's nothing coming out of it. If you catch it under 260.
So, yeah, there's actually nothing coming out of this window right now, right? So if that is an open window, and you've got everything coming out right here. It's room and contents, it hasn't gone out. Kind of weird though, right? Because generally, like we just discussed, that's a living room. Probably not gonna have too much separation from that living room to this kitchen. So how is it all staying on the front? Again, sim world, somebody who built it didn't catch that. But yeah, it could be wind driven. Honestly, I mean, if you're not looking at those things, you're gonna be missing stuff, right? The vaulted ceiling type. I mean, potentially, but that much product of combustion coming out of that alpha side, you got a good working fire in that room, right? Pretty good. So I can guarantee you do not have complete ventilation of that room in the sense that something is going back into that residence. The fact that it's not coming out of that window, pretty odd. So again, like you said, is it wind driven? Is it pushing in through there, not allowing it? Generally, you would find that more on like a bedroom door that's been shut and not able to get through the rest of it. But
would you allow that to change how you're gonna attack it? Come in Charlie's side? Rather than the opposite?
Once you open that door,
I would make a quick hit before I did anything. So my personal preference, even if it was wind driven, I would do a quick hit on that, take the energy out of it, make entry through that alpha door and finish it off. In the sense that I don't know what would happen if I didn't put that in check, went around to the Charlie side and then opened up a patio door and fed it with even more air and oxygen. Granted, yes, I'm attacking from the right side at least, but I'm also allowing it to build a lot more before I'm actually extinguishing. So I prefer to extinguish and go in and finish it off from the alpha. And then we can kind of guess, this is likely a bedroom, likely bedrooms. And again, potentially bedrooms, potentially living room. It's hard to know, right? So just again, doing my 360, I'm able to kind of get a general layout, what's going on inside, what are those fire conditions that they're getting. So first crew is assigned to do what? We're having them do a quick hit, right? So lay a line outside, complete a 360. You could even say complete a quick hit while I'm completing a 360 in the sense that your mindset is, please go ahead and extinguish that, prepare for entry. Once that 360 is complete, I can release you on the inside. I complete my 360, engine 11. They probably knocked that flame down. Could be even gray smoke at this point that's coming out of there. My 360 is complete. I know that they've got a lookout in the basement. I know that they've got a deck directly behind them. So if they needed to go directly through, they can. I want you guys to go ahead and make entry, finish that off. Next engine gets on scene. What are they going to do? Water supplying back up. That seemed fair if I haven't gotten my own water supply at that point. So unknown at this time. Until you're given an all clear, you don't have it, right? And even if this homeowner comes up to you, everyone's out. Do you have an all clear?
you could have left as well.
I feel a lot better about the situation. I can tell you, like, okay, it's always good. It's relieving to have somebody that was in the house tell you. Yeah, if it's one guy that looks like the Unabomber going, yeah, everybody's out. Do you live here? Are you sure? You know, that's one thing. But if it's you have got a group of people, yeah, we live there, everyone's out. Okay, that's reassuring. Do they get it right every time? When they tell you somebody's still inside, do they get it right every time? No. So we can't use what they say as verbatim, but we can let it influence ourselves at least a little bit as far as what our tactical priorities are. So first crew, quick hit, they're getting ready to make entry. Next crew gets there, that water supply is established. They come up to back them up, right? Seem pretty straightforward. What would you expect from a first crew? They made that quick hit. This has been darkened down. What would you want that can report to sound like? What would you expect, I should say, that can report to sound like? Right? So if they did a good quick hit, we don't believe upon our 360 that fire had really extended anywhere else. So they should be going in with a good quick hit. That fire should pretty much be out, right? Their job was fire control upon entry. They can come back and say, command from engine 1, go ahead, be advised, we do have fire control or fire under control, Alpha, Bravo corner, upper level. We're checking for extension. We do have power, right? So that would be a pretty typical CAN report on that. Once that's been established, you have the other crew make backup for that crew. What are you going to have them do? Search, right? Ventilation might take priority to allow for a better search, but search is probably going to be a little bit before ventilation, likely. Depends on the conditions. They're telling you high smoke, unable to no visibility. Maybe I'm going to have ventilation and search while you ventilate or whatever that is on the upper level. But basically, I've established that my first crew that was deployed was given that tactic. The second crew that was deployed was given the tactic to back them up. Once that main fire has been under control, do I need to keep them as backup? I can give them a tactical objective now. That fire has been established. Now I can just release them to give me a primary, that upper level. All right. It's not back that crew up so much anymore as much as it is now that that's been established. The hazard, the IDLH is starting to come down. Give me a primary, that upper level. Okay. Now, does that mean that
Both crews do the primary together?
depends? Do I want them to continue to go with checking for extension, for that primary crew, or do I want them to assist with that all clear? Because I don't just need an all clear upstairs. Where else do I need it? On the lower level. So there could be potential. Engine 2, I need you to drop back up. You're going to get a primary at the lower level. Engine 11, before you go ahead and complete extension or checking for extension, I need you to get a primary on that upper level. Again, your IC, you get to determine that. Just because they said they're going to switch to extension doesn't mean that that's what you have to have them do, right? So you're going through your list of tactical objectives. What was our priority? Life safety. It always sits up on the top. Now, our best way to establish and get to life safety was remove the fire, right? So if we remove the fire, now we can focus on life safety. Once life safety's been established, we don't believe we have an IDLH anymore. What's the next things that we can start working on? Ventilation, utilities, overhaul, all those other little things, right? Not little. We all know how much work overhaul can be, right? So if we go through that progression, as we assign people to this, we're getting good CAN reports, they're giving us good responses back, things are progressing the way that they are, we're able to now reassign them to, again, get our completion of our strategy, right? Let's see. You arrive on scene. What's that? It does look like it. It does look Brooklyn Park. It's a Brooklyn Park one. So they had to have been built right around the same time. Yeah, they look a lot alike.
Every city's got a bunch of those.
Exactly, and there's always that one apartment building you can find. Like, I've seen that 800 other places, right? So
Blaine don't have that.
oh, that's not too far off from
Stonegate?
well, yeah,
Or Carriage Oaks.
Carriage Oaks. I was gonna say Carriage Oaks is very similar style and look to that, especially with the pillars and everything. But all right, we get on scene. All right, you got engine 11 gets on scene. And for a reference, let's say this is an apartment complex, not a building, right? How does that change our thought process on how this lays out? It's bigger. I've got multiple buildings on one property, right? Okay. So my access could be limited, or I could have better access. Just depends. It's not the same as just a building sitting on a one residential road.
360 would be more difficult.
360 is gonna be very difficult on this, right? So you're paying attention on the way in, right? We're not staring at our phone, making sure we're getting any last minute updates or anything like that. We're pulling into this. I'm trying to look as I'm looking around this building because I'm likely not going to be able to walk around this, right? At least initially. Is there potential that we can miss stuff if we don't do that? So it's super important that we have good CAN reports. We're taking good care of our crews on the inside. Things are matching what we're seeing on the outside. And that we are, if able to, are getting at least good peeks around the corners to at least ensure that we're staying on task with that. That makes sense. What's our size up?
I'm at a apartment multi-family apartment complex at a working fire on the second floor from the balcony. We lay in line for fire attack.
How many stories?
3 stories.
3 stories?
3 stories.
What size? Large. So arriving, large, 3-story apartment complex, right? So again, cadence.
Such a good question.
What's that?
Would that be mega though? You can't get.
So this is one building of many buildings. It's not one giant building. So I would still call this large.
They're not all connected.
They're not all connected. Exactly. So they would be exposure buildings. It wouldn't be part of that initial building. It's not like you have one of those giant H's or some of those other layouts that you might find. So I would call it large. So arriving, large, 3-story apartment complex. Again, I get in the cadence of size, height, type. Size, height, type. Size, height, type. Large, 3-story apartment building. So that's, yep. So again, but once you find the cadence that works for you, just make sure all those points are in there. Again, I've just found more often than not, it just usually goes large, or I'm sorry, size, height, type is generally how most people will do it. Working fire, off the side, second floor, be beneficial. Again, hard to tell from this picture right here, center of the building versus an end unit, right? So alpha side, center of the building, second floor. What is it working on doing?
Extension.
Possible extension to the third, right? Doesn't really look like it's hit there yet, but definitely wants to go there, right? So I've got possible extension going to that third. What's your crew doing? Quick hit? Agree? It's going to take a little bit of time to get into that apartment. So not the end of the world. There's a lot worse apartments to try to get into, in the sense that I have to go right here, assuming stairwell is likely right here. Yeah, I guess that.
You might have to force that door.
But yeah, I'm right down the hall. So again, a pre-connect, it's not like I need to go out, get an apartment pack and do all these great big long lays or anything like that, but it's still going to be a little bit more work than on a normal one, right? With potential for limited visibility once I get to that second floor, right? What's that?
Wouldn't it be easier just to throw a ladder?
Hey, let's think outside of the box, right? So in a situation like this, whenever you can use a stairwell and protect a stairwell with a hose, it's a beneficial thing, right? Because when I protect the stairwell with the hose, what did I do? I protected my egress. I've protected all of the residents that are in this building. I've got an egress now that I can protect and operate in and out of, right? Now, let's say that this is an end unit and there's not a stairwell by it. Is there anything wrong with throwing a ladder to that and going up and getting it? What if it's especially down at the end unit and you know you've probably got a 300-foot lay if you were going to try to make that? How much more hose work, extra stuff has to go into that by the time you would actually get to that fire?
A lot.
Versus if I just parked my apparatus down there, threw a ladder, sprayed some water, climbed up, go in and finish it off.
Don't charge the line pretty well.
Don't charge the line. Now,
Maybe have two of them.
Yep.
So have someone hit, do a quick hit, and then you can go up with an on-charge.
now by doing that, if I take a pre-connect in on this spot right here, and I go and attack that fire, what have I limited myself from having? I've limited myself in egress. I've limited myself in protecting a stairwell. I've limited some of those other things. You're potentially going to have to still establish some of those things, especially if the fire is larger and it's extended to other units. But that can be a very effective way to put that room in check and get a line in there right away.
At least contain it.
At least contain it, right? So I always kind of weigh it out. There's nothing wrong with doing it. Just let the situation and the location of it kind of affect your decision-making process, right? If it's going to be quicker, throw a ladder, take a line and go do it. Go that route if that's going to put it in check, keep your crew safe, and keep it from getting worse for everyone else. Situation like this, it's probably going to be a horse apiece if I throw a ladder and go up and get this versus going in the stairs and going and get it. All right.
Would you want somebody to maybe stay on the outside and keep knocking it down if it does take the, say another crew, you send another crew interior to make entry to that apartment, just so on the exterior, they can keep it under control from getting out of control if it's going to take them longer to get in?
Sure. So if we were worried about this starting to extend and get beyond as a crew's going in, I would absolutely try to keep that in control, because anytime that you've got a fire on the exterior of a building and we try to fight it with interior tactics, what is this going to do? It's going to keep going, right? It's going to keep moving. It's going to keep extending. Well, I'm not so worried about push as much as I am just worried about that am I gonna effectively be able to knock all this fire down from the inside?
No.
I could maybe have put the fire out inside of that apartment from the inside, but I'm not necessarily gonna get all the extension that's possibly happening right there. So the best course of action, by the time that this fire is extended out, it's morbid to say, but is anybody alive in that room? Likely not. Likely not. Doesn't mean that they aren't, doesn't mean that they can't be in a bedroom right next to it or whatever else and safe. But if they're safe in those rooms, there's nothing wrong with us taking a little bit extra time to ensuring that the people up here think they're alive, potentially alive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, we're not trying to play who gets to live or who doesn't, but at the same time, my risk assessment is I've got likely no survivor, likely survivor. Let's protect it from getting worse and protect those survivable areas before I start committing myself into a location that's likely not survivable. That makes sense. So my first assessment, get a crew out. Even if my goal was throw a ladder and go knock that down, I know you said don't charge it first. I'm knocking that down before I throw a ladder. I'm quick hitting that. I'm quick hitting that before I go in. So quick hit, knock this down. And the quick hit isn't just to get this to retreat back into this room. The quick hit is going to be soaking that deck down, soaking maybe this soffit up here, and also giving it a second just to see as that smoke and everything kind of dissipates a little bit, do I have extension up there? Has it moved its way up there? Because does that change your mindset as incident command if it has? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we still wouldn't bypass this fire and go up to the third. You won't want to start working above a fire, but I need to get my next crew to that location, right? So crew gets on scene. We gave our size up. We'll go ahead and quick do a peek around because it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. By this view right here, what are we able to confirm? Middle. It's the center. You can start seeing right here. I've got a hallway that runs down the middle of this, right? So that nice thing about that hallway protects very low likelihood that there's extension to this Charlie side. By looking on the Charlie side, I can also confirm that there isn't anything there. You can tell the occupants are very casual about it. There's nothing big going on. That's good. yeah, right. If they're walking away, hold on, sir, I need to talk to you. Yeah. But once that 360 is complete, how does that sound? How do we come back to dispatch with our 360 on this? Confirmed fire, second floor, right? Is there much else to share? No. No. Dispatch from command. Go ahead. Be advised, we do have confirmed fire, second floor, center of the building on the alpha side. We'll be remaining in the offensive strategy. Anything else need to be said on that? No. It's confirmed. We know what we have. Maybe by this point, I'm able to determine if there is extension or not. But again, the change in conditions would be able to tell you that, right? So, engine 11, they get a great quick hit on this. Everything's knocked down, just got gray smoke coming out of there. Where are they moving now after they got that quick hit done? So they're making entry right here, going up to that second level and going to that fire unit, right? Okay. Let's say engine 3 gets on scene. Water supply has been established because luckily for us, we've got a complex in this parking lot. There's a hydrant right where we were. Driver's able to get that. Where's engine 3? Third floor, right? So if I still had a good working fire in here with no signs above, where would they go? I'd back them up. But since you've got pretty good confirmation that this has been knocked down and unknown about what's going on up here, we need to start establishing what's going on up here. So now you're making those tactical objectives. Where is that crew going to be most beneficial to the scene to get us to a safer direction, right? Safer thing for us and for the community, get into that room above, ensure that that extension has not happened to that level, okay? If there is no extension to that level, what would that CAN report be from that third floor crew? Potentially light smoke, right? So
light heat.
Or no heat. I would hope to hear no heat, because if you're telling me I got light heat, I'm like, all right. So there is potentially something in the floor or something, you know what I mean? But you could have, especially if this is spring, right? Are you going to have some smoke in that upper level? Absolutely, that's to be expected. If this is winter and that door has not been breached, and they're telling you got light smoke in there, that change your thought process at all? A little bit. I'm concerned at least a little bit because What do we know about apartments? They're pretty compartmentalized, right? Everything is pretty well sealed up. They're designed not to extend fire to other locations. A lot of these have double walls of sheetrock that are just not going to really transfer the smoke and the heat to the room above, unless there's an avenue for extension to kind of breathe that. Okay. So just because they're saying that there's light smoke in here doesn't mean that I know that there is, but I do want to identify how did that smoke get in. I'm seeing from the outside that all the windows and everything are still intact. All right. Somehow that smoke got in there.
Yeah, all clear up there too.
Yeah, you want to get it all clear? And if they're telling me up here that they've got light smoke, the crew down here needs to do a really good job of checking first. Full ceiling, start getting more involved, find the void spaces, find the chases, right? There's not a ton of them in apartments, but you know, where the plumbing sits for all of the kitchens, it's going to be stacked in a row, and you're going to behind that, you're going to have all those vent stacks that go all the way up to the roof. Great conduit for smoke to kind of travel all the way up. And we've seen that before where smoke was coming out of one kitchen sink when it was burnt food from the apartment next door, because the kitchens butt up against each other, and literally one guy's going, I don't know what's going on. There's smoke coming out from underneath my sink. And we're like, okay. And we look at it and we're like, there's smoke from underneath. Like, what the?
Plumbing wall.
And it was a plumbing wall. And again, there was that much smoke from burnt food, luckily, that it literally just made its way through and was popping into there. So we need to determine, why is it getting in there? How's it getting in there? And where are those void spaces? And where's it going to run to? Right? So those are really the big things. Is in apartment buildings, if you're seeing smoke or movement of heat to different areas, got to check those void spaces, got to find where they are and get ahead of it. That takes us to 8 o'clock. That went quick. All right, so next week we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit more. We're going to have more discussion on transfer of command, and then we're going to try to just run a couple of scenarios as if we were testing. All right, not in the sense to get you to practice for the test, but to get you comfortable for how it looks, sounds, feels, and is. All right, right? Because I don't want to test on your ability to just come into a sim environment. I want to test on your ability to know the skills and knowledge that we're shooting to have you understand. Okay. To this point, do we feel like we're getting a good grasp on what those skills, knowledge, and everything is? Has this been beneficial to know? Okay, good. So we'll continue to drive some of these points home for the last week. I know some of it gets a little redundant. It sounds like I'm talking about tactical objectives 800 times. I'm sure not by now, but I hope that it's starting to build and kind of create a little bit of that mindset. So we'll finish it off next week, and then we're done. So I will see if I can't get a couple more CAN report slides out to you guys, and maybe a couple more practice materials just for size up 360s, and then maybe some more of that thought processes on what a CAN report would sound like from an interior view. So I'll come up with a couple more of those. Good. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Were you going to find out if they can